Hello, everybody. I'm Logan Crawford, and this is the award-winning TV show, talk show right here on Ebru, Fresh Outlook. We begin today with a look at the midterm elections and what many see as a change from blue to red in the United States Senate. Take a look.
Americans will cast ballots in the midterm congressional elections on this coming Tuesday, November 4th. The president is not on the ballot, but has been campaigning for Democrats, making his trademark pitch.
First time in 6 years, unemployment's below 6%. Housing market that was reeling is now rebounding. Auto industry that was wheezing is now roaring back.
And there are mixed reviews.
I love him. He's doing all right. You know, he helped raise the minimum wage.
I don't think he's done a good job for what he said.
I try to do what he would have done.
Even some Democrats aren't showing the president any love. Senate hopeful Allison Lundergan Grimes, who is looking to unseat Mitch McConnell in Kentucky, dodged questions on her vote in 2008 and 2012.
It isn't about the president.
While voters will elect candidates for all 435 seats in the House of Representatives and 36 seats in the Senate, the focus is on fewer than 1 dozen Senate races.
I'm looking at Iowa, Colorado, and maybe New Hampshire. If Democrats lose 2 out of those 3, the Senate's gone.
Democrats hold 53 seats in the Senate, and the GOP has 45. Elections are being held for 36 Senate seats, and the Republicans must hold on to current seats and add an additional 6 to take the majority.
Back on set now, joining me is communications professional Bruno Tedeschi, Alain Sanders, a political science professor at St. Peter's University, Dr. Bill Rosenberg from Drexel University, and via Skype we have Stephen Tryon, author of Accountability and Citizenship. He is also a candidate in the 3rd Congressional District in Utah. And I'm going to actually begin with you, since we have you on Skype right now, Stephen. Let me ask you, do you think this upcoming midterm election is a referendum on President Barack Obama?
I don't think it should be, Logan, but I do think that the Republicans certainly have done everything they can to make it that. I believe, and I've written in Accountability Citizenship, that our elections every 2 years should really be focused on Congress much more than on the executive. But
okay, I'm going to stop you there, Alan, because I just want to get a quick answer to this question from everybody, and we will join you in just a second. Bruno Tedeschi, what is your take on this? Is this a referendum on the state of politics in the U.S. today, namely President Barack Obama's presidency?
Well, certainly there was a in the beginning of this election cycle, the Republicans were putting a big emphasis on the Health Care Act, the Affordable Health Care Act, and I think they didn't really get a lot of traction with that. And I think you start to see they're starting to step away from that now, and that's really Obama's signature issue, and I think it's one that the Republicans tried to tar and feather him with. And I just don't see that. I just don't see that happening now.
So some of the accusations haven't stuck. Let's turn to Bill Rosenberg. Same question.
I think that Obama is the big elephant in the room. I think the reality is that this is a long seesaw battle between Democrats and Republicans all the time. But the reality is, I don't think it much matters. I don't think it matters when we hear this discussion that the Republicans are going to take the Senate, that matters even more than this bit, because unless they get 60 senators, they're going to be in the same situation the Democrats were for most of Obama's administration.
And we'll talk about that a little bit more and the implication for 2016 in just a second. Alan, let me ask you the same question. Is this a referendum on President Barack Obama's presidency?
Yes, it is, in the sense that it's a referendum on Washington. I think most people out there believe Washington is broken. The face of Washington is Barack Obama, and so I think they want a change, and that's what you sort of hear out there, a change. Now, the Democrats, of course, want to make this a ground game, want to make this a set of local elections, and to the extent they succeed in making it local elections, they might have a shot. The Republicans, of course, want to make it a referendum on Obama, and I think right now the dialogue favors the Republicans.
All right, Steve, and Alan makes a good point. It is often said that all politics is local. Are we going to see people supporting their local candidates despite their party during these midterm elections, or are we going to see people coming out voting Republican if they're dissatisfied with Obama and voting Democrat if they're satisfied with the way things are going?
Well, I think that incumbency has a tremendous advantage regardless of party. So I do think that you'll see, again, that trend is going to continue. You'll see incumbents carry the day regardless of their party to an extent that you might not expect based on the national dialogue.
All right, Alan, I'm going to turn to you. Bruno, just want to change the topic for just a second, talk a little bit about the Cory Booker and Jeff Bell race. Does Jeff Bell stand a chance? I almost had to Google his name to figure out who he was. I mean, because Cory Booker has that much name recognition and is the incumbent.
Sure. I mean, Jeff Bell was someone who ran for Senate back when I was about 4 or 5 years old in I think it was 1972.
Right, and for the people out of our area who are not in New Jersey, he is running in New Jersey for the United States Senator.
Running in New Jersey, right. And Jeff Bell is a candidate who definitely has not raised any money. Cory Booker, if he's good at one thing, it's raising money. He's raised over $3 million to date, and I believe Jeff Bell's raised over less than $100,000. So just looking at those factors alone, it's very difficult for somebody who doesn't have any money to get their message out statewide when you're dealing with the most expensive media market and the fourth most expensive media market, New York and Philadelphia.
Plus, you got a handsome guy, an incumbent, a guy who's actually rescued people. We've had news stories that he pulled somebody out of a burning house one time.
Right.
I mean, he's like larger than life. He has that Barack Obama aura about him. And Jeff Bell just seems like this diminutive little man. He might be 7 feet tall for all I know, but from what I see on camera, he doesn't look like a comer.
And the other thing is he's just not talking about the issues that resonate with voters in New Jersey. He's talking about the gold standard, which, you know, if you asked 9 out of 10 people on the street, they wouldn't even know what the gold standard was. And so he's really not addressing any of the issues.
Issues that hit home.
Exactly.
Let me just turn to Bill Rosenberg. Bill, what is the headline for the 2014 midterm election? As we're having this discussion, what comes to your head?
I think it's basically a setup for 2016, really. I think what we're really looking at is that if the House stays Republican, which it's going to do, and the Republicans either take the Senate or almost take the Senate.
Now we're hearing that there's a 70% chance that the Republicans will take the Senate. Do you believe that?
I think that it's going to be very close. I don't think they're going to have 54, 55, 56 votes, but I think they may get over 51. So the issue is ultimately, what does that mean? And I think in a sense that helps candidates like Hillary Clinton, because she could say, look at what's going on in Washington. They're not solving any problems. All they're doing is bickering. You need somebody in Washington to change things up. And I think that plays into a candidate like Hillary Clinton rather than a candidate in the Republican lever.
Now, that's what the way I view it is the same way Bill and I are on the same page on this. If the Republicans do well, it's hard to play the blame game for 2016, saying it's all the Democrats' fault. Now they'll have control of the Congress, have control of the Senate, everything but the executive branch. It's hard to make a case to say, yeah, we need that post too. What's your take on all this?
Well, you say what the headline is. Well, if the Republicans win, as the pundits seem to say, the headline is, can the Republicans govern? I think many Americans have made the decision that Obama cannot govern. So I think that's part of the reason why there's a Republican tilt right now. But then the question will be, in control, if the Republicans come out to be in control of Congress, can they govern? And that, of course, sets it up for the presidential election, as you pointed out. I think Hillary Clinton has separated herself quite well from Barack Obama so that she can run as sort of an independent kind of Democrat.
And has separated herself from the electorate by saying that businesses don't create jobs this week.
Well, she makes, you know, she's not a perfect candidate. Nobody is. But she has played the game to try to separate herself out. And we don't know who the Republicans will be yet.
And she has quite a pedigree as well. Let's turn to Stephen Tryon, who's joining us from Utah. Stephen, what is your headline from the 2014 midterm election?
Well, you know, my top 3 priorities are the Congress needs to pass a balanced budget every year. That's number one.
Stephen, I'm going to stop you right there. Do the electorate really care about that? Do they really see the impact on them directly? A lot of people say, hey, we can have budgets that aren't in balance and still have economic growth.
Well, I understand that a structural deficit is not necessarily a bad thing, but a budget that's out of control is a bad thing. And we've got more than a structural deficit. We've got a budget that's out of control. So we need to demonstrate to the American people that Congress can govern. And one of its prime functions is to produce a budget and to produce a balanced budget. And that's something that we need to get back to as a fundamental premise. It's my number 1 priority here.
Yeah, but one of the things that you have to recognize is that you have 435 members of the House and 100 senators, and they all have their own agendas. So while they may want to talk about a balanced budget, they're really concerned about what pork's coming back to their neighborhood, what they're going to be able to deliver to their constituents, and that's who votes for them.
Exactly. That's where we said politics is all local. What matters to me is how my district is going to fare, the district that I'm living in. Alaska, Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Louisiana, Michigan, New Hampshire, North Carolina, and West Virginia are the states that could go to the Republicans. Alan, talk to me a little bit about the situation in Alaska.
Well, Alaska is kind of an interesting state. You've got a Democratic senator right now. He's on the line. It's not clear whether he will make it or not. Alaska has tended to vote Republican. And so again, what you're getting is this kind of analysis where you've got the Democrats arguing local, the Democrats arguing local, and the Republicans arguing national. And you can see that both more broadly speaking, nationally speaking. It's really come down to a ground game. Whether you're talking about Alaska or any of these states, you've got the Republicans using the fire in the belly kind of argument to be, are you angry at Obama? And the Republican base is. The Democrats, on the other hand, are playing a ground game by going to their traditional constituencies, which are blacks, women, minorities of all kinds, and of course young people.
And labor unions.
And labor unions as well. And so it's really coming down to a ground game. That's why it's not yet clear that the Republicans will get a majority. It depends which side is fired up the most, which side can get its base out the most, because we all know that midterm elections don't have a high turnout rate. So it's really the ground game that matters the most.
Okay, I'm going to turn it to Bruno. Bruno, are you surprised at all with what is happening in Kentucky and Mitch McConnell's race, his grasp for life to hold on to his post?
No, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I think that the Democrats have managed to do to do a good job of painting him as an extremist, and I think that Kentucky is a fairly conservative state, but I think if you go far enough and paint him as an extremist, there are people who will respond to that. Now, whether that's enough to unseat him, I don't know, but.
Quickly, I'm going to turn to Bill Rosenberg and ask you about the Cuomo-Astorino race. Cuomo's been called some ugly names by the New York Times. I think a fraud and a phony are two of them we see in a campaign headline run by Rob Astorino. And Rob Astorino has been made out to be a complete off-the-wall fringe candidate, according to the Cuomo camp. We've seen some ugly campaigning in this race, but it seems like Cuomo has a sizable margin.
He seems to be fairly out in front. The other thing I think you should recognize is that New York City politics is very rough and tumble. You know, if you take a look at particularly papers like the New York Post and a lot of the radio stations, they're going to be attacking Cuomo all the time. I think one of the real keys has been the last couple of weeks, from my perspective, about his position on Ebola, where he took one position partnering with Christie, and then 2 days later reversing course almost 100%.
Well, my feeling about Cuomo is that he has no spine on any issue at all. I don't care whether you're very far to the left, very far to the right, or fall in the middle, but try to fall consistently along those lines. And he says, I'm for Common Core standards, but let's not implement them right away. Let's quarantine for Ebola, but we'll do it at home. Bruno, you seem to be connecting to this.
Yeah, well, I think on the one issue where I would disagree with you on that is on education. And I think that he's just last week, and I'm not sure exactly why he did this, but he was never supported by the state teachers union. Not in 2010 and not again this year. But for whatever reason, he decided he needed to antagonize the teachers union. They're, I don't know, 600,000 strong in New York. And generally in every state, especially in the Northeast, the teachers union is one of the most powerful voices in electoral politics. And for some reason, he decided to put a stick in their eye by saying that the public school system is a monopoly that must be broken up. And I can't for the life of me understand why he said that, but it clearly showed. But he's always been on the side of education reform, and I think that's one area where he's been consistent.
I'm going to hold you right there. We're going to thank Stephen Tryon for joining us from Utah today via Skype. Thank you so much for your thoughts and your opinions, and good luck in your race there, sir. When we return, we will take a look at a storm that left half of Manhattan in the dark for days after this.